welcome to the Man Alone Solo Role-Playing YouTube channel. And, sometimes when you're lonely, when you're afraid, it's just nice to be held, by someone strong. And for that reason, we're talking Strongholds today. Specifically, the Stronghold mechanic in Forbidden Lands, which I do believe is a strong Stronghold mechanic. We are going to do a systematic approach in this video. And just to sort of provide a warning, a disclaimer, if you are interested in Forbidden Lands, if you are interested in the Stronghold mechanic in any game, sort of a headquarters kind of thing, if you're interested in learning about unique systems and adapting them to solo play, or if you're interested in just a conversation about ways to bring collaborative elements to solo play, and I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but actually this is a perfect opportunity to do some parallel solo play. Please stick around. This video is going to open up with a little bit of a discussion about strongholds in general and what they're for, why they're cool, why some game groups avoid them altogether. And then we're going to go through the variety of resources available in Forbidden Lands, and we're going to learn how to set up and maintain a stronghold. And that includes every resource. So we have the Player's Handbook, the Game Master's Guide, which actually doesn't have much about strongholds in it. We'll look at the additional guidance from the Book of Beasts expansion. And then we're going to dive into secondary and tertiary materials. We have, this is just the Stronghold sheet from like where you would track your Stronghold. And here we also have the solo expansion by Matt K, or on YouTube as at Three Skulls Tavern. It's available on drive-thru-RPG. It's sort of everything that Matt wanted to include in the solo rules that he wrote in the Book of Beasts, but was not able to because of space constraints. And we have also a variety of additional resources from across the Forbidden Lands multiverse of forbiddenness. By the way, the solo expansion by Matt K was recently upgraded to what looks like its final form here, version 1.0, and I think it's pretty affordable, definitely worth it on drive-thru. It's 15 pages. We also have the Castles and Strongholds supplement by Pablo Filero, which has additional ideas, which I think Pablo filled in a lot of missing pieces here, Zyphos Game Studios, in terms of how the resource management piece of it works. And then, of course, we'll take a look at the massive, unbelievably impressive amalgamation of homebrew come alive, that is Reforged Power. Both the player's booklet and the Game Master's Guide have some ideas for strongholds. We might take some of them. We might take all of them. We might say thanks, but no thanks. And we may also look at the Wormwood supplement by Graham Henson, which is a solo adventure, right? Solo for Forbidden Lands, and see if we can abstract anything from that. So yeah, we're going to reach far and wide here, and I'm going to do a Man Alone special here, which is sort of learn in public. So if the ultimate goal of this is that currently on the SEAL Team Waffle Alpha Discord for this channel. And if you are a member at the $3.99 a month level, just please message me on Discord for access to that. We have a channel on there where we are going to collaboratively run a stronghold, which I think is going to be very fun. And now I'm very optimistic. It could be a disaster, but from the way I imagine it, I think this is a perfect mechanic to collaborate on. It does not require that we play the same adventure, the same campaign, does not require that we are online at the same time. It's going to be an asynchronous week by week update where we will manage resources and hirelings and different events. And I think it could be really cool. So this video is sort of the, I decided not to make this one members only, just because future ones will be, but this one is not, because I wanted to extend an invitation to any of you who might be interested in this to join us. And this will definitely be a collaborative effort, though I will be facilitating some of the pieces of this. It is not something where it's not a subscription service to like play by correspondence chess. We're all going to have to figure out how to do this together. And I think it'll be quite fun. You know, in terms of solo play, I have always been thinking about ways to create a point of intersection for solo players where they can share some of their progress, that the results of their activities in their own solo campaign could have meaningful impact on other players. And I think the Stronghold is really the ideal setting for this. Now, my idea, which is a little bit of maybe requires a little bit of hand waving to make it make sense, but we could probably figure that out. Here's a little sketch that I came up with. And this is my idea. We don't have the name of the Stronghold yet, although I'm developing an oracle for that, and I'm going to have those who are participating in it give me some dice rolls, and then based on those results, we will figure out sort of in a Mad Lib style the name for the Stronghold. But my idea is that it's a stronghold that the facade of it looks like an old abandoned mine shaft, and you would enter here and you would go down, and here below is sort of a swirly portal. And my thought for this is that this is the Forbidden Lands. This is actually a picture of my physical map. The sticker here represents the stronghold placement in the shroud around the bottom right of the map. The idea would be for my campaign, my stronghold is here, but other players might want to place their stronghold in other places. So a bit of a mystery, very convenient mystery, would be that regardless of where you enter the stronghold on your own campaign map, you would exit here and be able to enjoy the same physical space of the stronghold, right? And so now a little bit of a nut that I had to crack was like a lot of these stronghold events involve incursions, right? Like different attacks or different challenges, obstacles. And so my thought was, if we all have it in different places in the world map, how would we generate those? And the decision to make this like a mine shaft was intentional in that the stronghold can be built like an underground sort of barracks, castle, headquarters, fort, etc. But then under the stronghold, and I guess just to, yeah, this is a wasted sheet of paper because it bled through, but we could use this just to sketch. 1 second here. So if if this is, let's just say, I'll do a rough drawing of the map that we have. You know, there's a shaft that goes down here, and then we have the Stronghold. Here's sort of the like great room for it, right? It leads into here, and then, you know, we could build out different areas here. This could be a kitchen, stairs down. It could be a training room over here. There can be a granary right here. Whatever we want. There's lots and lots of options and modules and different things that can be built out here. I'm kind of just doing a rough sketch here, but the idea would be that at some point in the Stronghold there is a door, a similarly mysterious magical door, and when you pass through this door there is a massive, 2800 level deep dungeon beneath that. So in addition to having like the Stronghold all in one place, you have this ever shifting dungeon that all of us could not only do delves into for resources and finding artifacts and leveling and everything, but it also, we can use random dungeon generator mechanics as are available in the Book of Beasts to, and I think the Game Master's Guide, there's like just delve generators so that we could, if we wanted to, if we were online at the same time, we can hop on the voice chat and do a quick delve, just kind of roll one up. But also the players can just as easily come up and out of the Stronghold and go onto the world map to also, collect resources and recruit hirelings, which is a part of, there's some grain. Let me see if I can make some corn here. That's a good use of our time, right? Maybe we'll make it into a carrot. That'll be simpler. So you can basically go and do anything you want, but the benefit is we have this one centralized stronghold that's sort of floating out of time. Okay. And maybe we can figure out like a little bit more of how that works. It's not super important for me, but I like that it allows us to not have to worry about things like, oh, well, which hex is your stronghold on? And, why, how come our stronghold wasn't subject to a volcano erupting nearby? And I'm not able to, why were you able to make it back to the stronghold so quickly? I'm all the way across the map, etc. It's like, yeah, it's like regardless of what's going on in your campaign, the stronghold is sort of a universal constant. Okay. So briefly, just before we dig into the source material, and today's bookmarks, by the way, are kind of these cute little, let me get the name of them off of drive-through. Yeah, there's this cute little Soothsayer's deck, which is available printed on drive-through RPG. You can get it for $12, the PDF and the printed cards. And I just really like them because, as you could probably tell from my Jungian Archetype based Oracle Vox Gravis, available for only $3 on drive-through RPG. I really like anything that draws inspiration from archetypical images. And in addition to having the picture and the title, they also have something that is something like a mechanic. And just having used these for my own play a little bit over this past weekend, they work really well. half of what was expected. A different prize is won. So, it's like a different prize is won is a picture of a golden fish. Not many situations where you're going to use a golden fish literally, but there's certainly situations where you think you're going to get rewarded in one way, or you think you're going to get a benefit or advantage, and you don't get it that way, but you do get some sort of different kind of victory or advantage that might even be more worth your while. So, cool little deck, and they are currently working double time here. I have them, sorry, still in the wrapped, terribly gauze wrapped phase. I do get this cast off my wrist in 2 days. I'm very excited. But I'm also using them as these little bookmarks here today. And again, we have these primary sources here: Forbidden Lands Player's Handbook, the Game Master's Guide, and the Book of Beasts supplement, which has solo rules as well as some additional GM rules. So before we get into it, I just want to talk broadly about Strongholds. There's not too much to say here. Definitely not going to be blowing your mind when it comes to this, but I will say that Stronghold mechanics are present in many Free League games, and they're a little bit different in each one. So there's one in Vaesen, One Ring. The Mutineer Zero has a stronghold of a sort called the Ark, which is your starting point, and it has really interesting social mechanics, and you have to like sort of vote on different things, and it's a place where you pretty much abstract. For instance, in Mutineer Zero, there are about 200 people at the start of the game in the Ark, and so you have to figure out how to apply those people to work projects. And it's a nice switch of frame because even if you're playing as a group with Mutineer Zero, you may alternate between your character's POV, but then when it comes to group play, you can speak on behalf of your player, but you also have to sort of expand out to think about the arc as a whole. And so it offers a cool perspective shift, and it offers a sort of a mini game within the games. I am hopeful that the next Dragonbane release will have some sort of Stronghold mechanic, because I think that will bring a lot of things together for Dragonbane. But one of the biggest reasons I love a Stronghold, especially as a solo player, is it provides a meaningful, consistent core play loop and constant source of achievement, expansion, and growth that keeps you in the game and also anchors you to a loop of play that can feel satisfying, and it's always there. And what I mean by that is, in solo play, as many of you likely know, you will sometimes have decision paralysis, or whatever the inverse of that is, like decision despondence, where you either have so many options that you become paralyzed with the vastness of the choices available to you, or you kind of get like a brain explosion. I'm just thinking of that opening scene in Super Metroid, where it shows like the planet exploding. That occasionally happens in solo play, where you're kind of moving and grooving along, and all of a sudden a image of a planet exploding crosses your mind, and you're like, what am I doing? How do I play this game? What is the point? What was I supposed to be doing? What's next? And the Stronghold, like I said, provides an anchor for that, so that even if you don't have any active quests, even if you're confused about how you should be progressing, you can go back to the Stronghold and say, okay, well, what kind of projects could we be working on? Let me go back to the Stronghold and interact with some of the people there, see what the downtime is like. I can heal up my character. I can do upkeep in terms of like stats and if I need to advance any levels and decide what skills I want to improve next or what talents I want. And then you also have these opportunities to create different modules or rooms or functions for your stronghold, and they differ from game to game, but essentially all of them have at least some mechanical advantage either to the stronghold itself, which is important in terms of producing resources, or defense. Because another fun thing about strongholds is there can be stronghold events like attacks or incursions, or there can be natural disasters, or there can be, in the case of Forbidden Lands, you have like employees there, and so you need to pay them. And some of them also directly positively influence the player and the player character and their capabilities, because it might come down to resource availability. You could build a bakery here that will improve flour output, which you can use for your food resource. You might be able to build what is it called? A smithy, like a blacksmith, the anvil or whatever, so that you can reforge weapons or upgrade them or repair them. Or you might be able to build something like a med bay, any variety of those things that will improve your survival and accomplishment, advancement. They will advance you in the gameplay, make your character stronger, make you more viable, I guess is a weird word to say, as a player character. And so I really like that, because even if the improvement is like pretty small, even if the upgrade that you get is like an improved stables for your horses so that they can rest faster, just gathering the resources for that, putting in the time to work on it, putting in dice rolls to invest in that. In Mutineer Zero, you literally have like work points, and you have to roll on different skills, and however many successes you get add to work points, and you have to hit a certain threshold for that to be developed, and you have to have certain talents and some modules. You need to build other ones in advance. And so I feel like sometimes you can look this up using your favorite search engine, Bing, Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves. You can see there's lots of questions on Reddit that are just like, hey, does anybody use the Stronghold mechanics? What are your players doing with these? How often do you use them? What do you think of the rules of it? And unfortunately, in a lot of group campaigns, they don't get used a lot, which makes a little bit of sense, because as we were talking about in the crafting video, having these strongholds could feel a little bit like resource management and more of a maybe not a board game, but it just doesn't seem like something that's incredibly fun, perhaps, to some groups. They say, well, what do I want to sit around for and roll on dice to get a better furnace? But for solo play, we would love an improved furnace. And so for this reason, originally when I had introduced this project, I said, well, I'm going to traipse around the Forbidden Lands, and when I find a good place to set up a stronghold, we'll talk about it. But the more that I was thinking about it, the more I was like, why not just start with the stronghold? Why not develop a whole adventure based around this, especially because you may not be engaging with the meta narrative in solo play, right? You may not be following the campaigns, because a lot of times solo play, although I know from the comments and from my own play, like some people do keep pretty tight as best as possible to the campaign and improvise different pieces of it. But for myself and many solo players, the story of the game, the meta narrative, is flavor, right? It's there. You read it. You could draw things from it that are helpful, but it's more of like a resource that you use as you need, rather than something you hug very tightly to and follow along step by step, which really you shouldn't be doing that in group play anyways. I mean, if you're with a GM who's just going step by step through the campaign, at least for myself, I would feel like that's not what it's all about, as they say, RE colon the hokey pokey. And so for solo play, I feel like I could have a lot of fun playing over and over again and just focusing on building up the stronghold. But I also don't want that approach to limit other people, hence the sort of open-ended collaborative play. Okay, I feel like I've sufficiently beat that into the ground. So now let's go to the resources here. In this next section of the video, we are just going to learn how strongholds work. And my hope is by the end of this, we'll have a good idea of what they are, how you establish them, how you run them, what you can do with them, and what the maintenance is, as well as how we can integrate it into our solo campaign. Okay, so we're going to start with the GM guide, which actually doesn't really have much on strongholds, but it does have something that will be used in it. And just to sort of announce the movement into this next segment here, I thought we could add a little musical transition, but as you may or may not know, even a very small music clip is pretty expensive. So I just want to try home brewing a little something, that I just came up with here, and this will sort of be my own totally unique production and let me know how this goes. I'll only do it in this one segment, and let me know if you want me to incorporate this in future videos. But okay, so next, the Game Master's Guide. Sorry. Okay, the Game Master's Guide for solo play is actually, strangely, one of the let me put it this way: the player's guide in Forbidden Lands definitely kicks out of its coverage. I'd say in a lot of games that you're solo playing that have a distinct GM and player's guide, you're going to be working from the GM guide a lot. But for Forbidden Lands, it is more of a reference for in-game lore, artifacts, and it has an extensive bestiary, but there's also an additional bestiary in the Book of Beasts. And so a lot of what this would be used for in terms of the stronghold would probably be in terms of the adventure site generator. And specifically for our stronghold, which will be a dungeon. And there are like mega dungeon supplements and stuff, but I'd say in Forbidden Lands, dungeons are more rare, is my impression, just from watching playthroughs and having soloed myself. And so proper dungeons, you might say. But there is, as it says here, the Forbidden Lands are filled with layers, caverns, subterranean labyrinth, dark passageways, etc. Anything underground is called a dungeon. And so the idea here would be anytime we would delve into the dungeon that's connected to our stronghold through the basement hatch. Oh, that's creepy. We'd probably not worry about the age of the dungeon. That might be something we have no idea about. But we would probably start with the size of the dungeon if you wanted to rate limit how many or how big that specific delve was going to be, right? And so if it was, you could do it randomly, roll a d6, and then say we rolled a 3. That'd be an average dungeon, and then we'd roll 3d6 for the amount of rooms in that dungeon. And again, this wouldn't actually mean that that is what the dungeon, the basement dungeon that I will refer to it as, that doesn't mean that that is the permanent size of it. It just means that is the part of it that you are going to be exploring at that time. And again, I think that we would just sort of, by power of fiat, declare that this is a strange, moving dungeon that's alive. Its original purpose, this could also change if we wanted to say that sort of the trappings of it, the decor changed. It could be a temple, a stronghold, could be an older stronghold, a prison, a tomb, etc. And, more of any more information we want, who created it, the history of it, we could apply that abstractly and with a light touch, knowing that this is going to be different every time you go down. So it will inform not necessarily the lore, but how the dungeon looks, who is there. And then you can roll on dungeon inhabitants, and this will give us like a good set of creatures. And you could pretty much do that room by room, or you can sort of decide that in advance. And then also we would probably want to expand this when using the Book of Beasts, just to make sure that we're not using the same inhabitants over and over again. The entrance is pretty decided, but again, this could be something that is just used in an abstract way to create a little bit of an oracular input. I'm going to use my padded dice tray here, so hoping that the mic doesn't pick it up too much. And we can say, just see how this would work, and kind of, again, with a light touch. 26, that is going to be down a hole. So yes, that definitely fits. But if it was something like below water, right, we could say, okay, maybe one of the first room or the ante room to the dungeon this time has water up to your waist or whatever. And then these ones are for specific rooms, just to roll up each room that you enter, doors that are exits or doors, and then whether they're locked and what is in the room, which is basically nothing, creature, or trap. And if you roll again a d6, and if it's 5 or a 6, there's an item in the room. And the idea here would be, we would be really looking for riches, lore, or information. So as we go on, I might modify some of these so that some rolls where you would normally get a like an item or a weapon, we can change it so that there's something that has to do with the lore or the history of either the dungeon or the stronghold. And we can probably play much more fast and loose with that, because we can just use a more thematic oracle, and then when somebody finds a piece of information or background, we can share it with the others and see what it might mean. And what I mean by that is, like, well, just saying, like, suppose I'm just drawing from this deck right here. Say that somebody got a really lucky roll, and during their dungeon delve, they come back to the Discord server, and they say, hey, well, I was down there, I defeated an enemy, and what I got after that was a clue. Oop, threw it too far, and the input is the web. So that one is pretty easy, right? Maybe there's some spiders, or it could be more abstract, right? Entanglements. There could have this could have been a cave that, due to a betrayal from the gods, Verm, or these prehistorical deities that are part of the Forbidden Land setting. There could have been a betrayal, and just like the Titans, which Zeus put under a mountain in Greek mythology, that could involve something like that. The vulture, there could be something to do with scavenging, or somebody who is still roaming looking for the remains of something. And we could sort of toss that around abstractly, and from that, this is the other cool part, is we can collaboratively build somewhat of a lore for both the stronghold and the dungeon beneath. Oddities, right? Mushrooms, alcoves, altar, rats, bats, different traps. And then this goes into a castle. Now, I think also that we could probably use the castle one as well. Just kind of looking at this as an underground castle. And it really is like, if it is going to be this mutable thing that changes based on, who's going down there and what day it is, etc. Anything can pretty much fly. Even a village, really, we could borrow from that. There's some sort of underground village, a ghost town that time left behind, that, a volcano covered or whatever it is. So I think for the most part, that is going to be the big use in terms of strongholds from the GM guide. And just sort of scanning the rest of the pages here, I would say anything we could look up, like artifacts or something like that. We can determine whether we want to use the artifacts as they're intended, or if we want to create a new list of artifacts that's more historical and something where we're almost trying to find them as a form of unlocking achievements or something like that. And then finally, there is also on page 183, there's creatures, and on 186, there are a big list of treasures and finds, which I think this as well is going to be a big resource. Precious finds, right? There's a lower amount of precious finds, and so yeah, this is going to generate a lot of the detritus, so to speak, that we use to throw into the imagination machine and create a collaborative story, which I'm very much looking forward to. All right, let's move on to the Player's Handbook. And for sure, the Player's Handbook is the most substantial source on strongholds and what they are, how we're going to set them up, etc., etc. So I will read some of the selections here, but I will also sort of scan through for the most important parts. I'll try to avoid a lot of the flavor, and I won't go too deep into it, just so that this video isn't 10 hours long. So the normal way that you would establish a stronghold is to find a suitable location for it. So usually what this is, and by the way, in an actual campaign, you can have multiple strongholds that have a variety of locations and formats, and it can get kind of tricky, especially if you have hirelings, which we'll talk about, which are different skilled companion type NPCs that need to be paid. And so having strongholds all over the map could be advantageous, somewhere to rest and convalesce and store stuff and have all sorts of benefits, like you're almost reaping these passive benefits from all your strongholds, but more money, more problems, right? So if you got strongholds all over the place, you might be running around town to fill out people's W-2 paperwork and stuff. So obvious choices are a castle or a dungeon, but any adventure site that you have cleansed of enemies or monsters during your adventures, we're going to just start from the place of stronghold, at least in the way that I'm playing. If anyone else who wants to join in will be like, I will join the stronghold once I find a location for it, totally fine. You can also build the stronghold from scratch, but that would require several work improvement projects in the first place, which will take time, talents, skills, and resources. You'd have to build a wooden house, a stone house, or a castle, which would take time and tools and raw materials. The base effects, regardless of what projects you've completed, etc., the base effects are A, you can rest and sleep undisturbed there without risking any mishaps. And of course, mishaps on page 154 right here are the variety of things that can happen while you make camp out in the wilderness. And then the second thing is that each adventurer in your group gains a willpower point when you arrive home to your stronghold and spend at least a day there. Now, you can only gain one willpower point per session this way. Maybe that would be modified depending on how long the session would. And for solo play, that's always a little bit more fudged, so to speak. When you are building it, you have to complete a series of work tasks, and we'll talk about that. But if you miss any of those roles, your stronghold can have one of a variety of flaws, which is built out even more in some of the supplements. Now, it's important here that the stronghold can help you in a lot of ways based on the projects and who you have working there and where it is, but it can also cause trouble. So number one, it could cause trouble in the form of unwanted attention from others in the area. And there are events that can happen to your stronghold. The collaborative stronghold, each week, we would probably roll 1 or 2 events and ask everybody how they want to respond to that. And I think the beauty of this is, like, you don't have to respond. Like, this is not something that you have to say, oh, geez, do I have time in my schedule for? When you see a notification, you log on and you say, okay, I'm going to, add my sword to defend. And that means when I do the roll to determine how the stronghold defense session goes, I could just add 1 additional die. And also it can cause trouble in the form of, as I mentioned, it requires upkeep. And so sometimes you can hire someone to do it, but that's also going to cost money. And this is managed through 2 ways, functions and hirelings. Sometimes if you establish your stronghold and it already was something, right? If you like sack a castle and take it over, it might already have some functions. The GM in a group play game would figure that out. In this case, there are no existing functions yet. I may decide to add 1 or 2 things if I feel as though it would be appropriate to scale difficulty or whatever, but for the most part, this is new. We've just found it. May have hirelings, and what you're probably going to want to do before that is build a function. A function you can think of as if you've played a game that involves shipbuilding or anything like that, it's like adding a module or adding an additional room or function, like anything that produces an effect, a measurable effect that yields an improvement either to the stronghold itself or the people in it. And just as in normal items in Forbidden Lands, some of these functions are advanced and you have to have certain talents to build them, which is another nice thing about collaborating. Even though we're solo playing, is that if you are solo playing and you don't have the talents required to build something, either it's going to take a long time to do that, you have to find an NPC to help you do that, or you just don't do it. Under each of the functions, there's tools and raw materials listed as for what you need, as well as the time that it takes. Usually these are at least 2 quarter days. Sometimes it works on a sort of tree system where you need to already have completed a lower function to produce the higher one. So I'm just kind of making this up off the top of my head, but perhaps you need to have a fireplace before you create a forge or something like that. If the roll fails, the same PC can't try to build the same function again until the crafting skill has increased. So again, this presents a problem in solo play, is that you'd have to level up your crafting skill to give another go at a function. But in group play, somebody else can attempt it. All right. This is important right here. The rules for strongholds are intentionally quite simple and abstract. The purpose of this chapter is not to simulate a medieval castle in all of its aspects. That would be an entire game of its own. but to give the characters a home and a hub for their adventures. If you feel that some aspect of the Stronghold should be developed further in this game, feel free to write house rules and share them on the forums. Yeah, so like I've said in videos before, I'm not sure if this is an exact example of it, but sometimes solo players are useful tools in a community for a game, because whereas the GM can sort of just make a ruling on something in group play, the solo player often has to ask, what sort of system can we make here that yields definitive outcomes for this, right? That actually allows us to simulate this in a relatively stable and predictable and meaningfully formulated way. And I think that a lot of the supplements have done a good job of this, but there still may be areas where we just maybe have to use an oracle or just roll on it or just come up with a decision. We will see the abstract and simple nature of the Stronghold system when it comes to resources, because this was something that was not really well defined, and there are people, whenever there is any question about raw materials being asked, and I'm sorry that I sometimes confuse resources and raw materials, which I shouldn't, because in Forbidden Lands, resources are one of your step dice, right? So you can't confuse those. Talking raw materials, what is used to build things. Those the system for collecting those, how much inventory space they take up, where they can be found, how you get that many. None of that was really spelled out very well in the core game. And it's hard to know. Like, some of these functions require 200 wood to make them. Well, if I'm, only collecting raw materials from like what loot enemies drop when I defeat them, and if I can only if one piece of wood takes up one inventory slot, how long is it going to take to build something that requires 200 wood, let alone another 100 steel and another 200 stone? Several functions will increase your reputation score, and all adventurers' reputation scores are affected. Most functions need to be staffed by a player character or an NPC. So if player character is there, they can staff it while they're there. And some functions won't do anything unless somebody is at the controls, so to speak. In some cases, the staff is required to have a certain talent, and sometimes dice need to be rolled. Only PCs roll for functions. NPCs are assumed to succeed automatically with one success. All right, to get some hirelings to work in your stronghold, you first need to find suitable candidates. This is played out normally. What a sentence. And usually requires a visit to the nearest village. So hopefully I have a village. The Hollows is pretty close to where I set up my stronghold, and I hope others who are going to join me in this have some village that is not too far, because that will probably be the place where we will be using ZipRecruiter. Boy, how do I get that ZipRecruiter money? Here, little aside, Olive Garden. If you want somebody, the population that watches my videos, they're the right people to advertise Olive Garden to. So if you want to, collaborate with me, please reach out, amanalone@proton.me. And I can easily change that to proton.meet if the price is right. So once a suitable candidate is found, you have to use a manipulation roll, another notoriously bad skill name in almost every Free League game that just means persuade. I hate the fact that you have to manipulate people to persuade them, and then you have to pay them their daily salary indicated on the list of hirelings below, which is not below. I guess it's below in an abstract sense. But let's see here. Yeah. So the daily, let me find this list of hirelings here. All right, so it actually was a few pages later, but I understand when you're creating these documents, you're looking at it as one continuous scroll, so I won't hold it against them, but we have a list here on page 173, a baker, a bowyer. I don't know if you knew this, but I looked this up. That's a person who makes bows, a bowyer. Next time, I get into some legal dispute, I'm going to say, I'm going to get my bowyer on this case. Carpenter, executioner. I think that would be an interesting business to start together. Carpentry and execution. It'd kind of be like when Taco Bell and Pizza Hut combined. Farmer, guard, handyman, hunter, innkeeper, jailer, lumberjack, master builder, who is 2 silver to hire, a miller, a miner, a quarry worker, a smith, a tanner, leather tanner, and a tailor. No tinker, soldier, or spy, although we do have a guard. And there's this little box here that says regarding, again, is sort of a disclaimer about this whole thing. Yeah, this list of functions and hirelings are extensive, but they don't cover everything you might want to do with your stronghold. You are free to make up new functions and hirelings. It's up to the GM to determine the effect of such functions and hirelings, as well as what is required to build them. And so, just looking through this list here, again, nicely laid out in terms of their salary, which yet another thing that you have to do pretty close tracking of dates and the calendar, which we have several tools are out there for that. This might be yet another way that the sort of collaborative approach to it, the Discord would make it easier, is that we could technically like play it as a week of real time. The salary and the supply, whether they are common or uncommon. And so I think in terms of recruiting hirelings, again, this is something that a GM would just sort of like make a ruling on, but this means that in terms of if we were to make some sort of dice roll system for recruiting hirelings, it would be a more rare result to find, say, a bowyer. And I'm not sure if that would be like a random roll or if it would be something that would be predicated on a skill check. When making solo games or even adapting games to solo play, this is a question that comes up pretty often, right? Do we make that into a straight up and down oracular question, or do we allow there to be a skill check involved? And I think the central question with that is truly, is there anything that my player character could do to augment their ability to perform this? So in terms of finding these people, like if we were to go to a village and say, hi, I'm looking for a farmer, I think the availability would be straight up and down. I think it would just be a matter of narrative choice and a yes-no oracle system. But then in terms of recruiting, right, because we have to sort of think about what we're asking here. This is not just like, do you want to work at my company? This is essentially like, do you want to live on my estate? And I could tell you that when being offered a job, that's a tough choice, right? If somebody was like, hey, could you work at this restaurant as a server? I'd say, great. Well, not really. I don't think I'll ever do that again. I worked for a corned beef and cabbage company as a server when I was younger. But would I live at the restaurant? Not so sure. Okay, so we are recruiting these hirelings, I assume that would happen by going into town or throughout the adventures. We can just meet people. If it becomes something that's difficult as we're doing this collaboratively, who knows? We could have some sort of hireling temp agency. But I really do love this hireling system because, again, this offers an intriguing mechanic, an upkeep mechanic of play. Not only do you have these individuals that are helping you to run your underground mini mall, as it were, but you also have a lot of NPCs now. You know, people who can develop personalities, who you can play off of, who you could potentially, if you're going down and doing a solo delve into the dungeon beneath the stronghold, maybe you could take one of the guards. Hell, maybe you could take one of the chefs and tell him to bring his best frying pan. So the um, the implications of this exist both within the stronghold and outside of it, and sometimes both. And what I mean by that is just like the functions giving us different advantages, some of them give us advantages for what's happening within the stronghold, and some of them outside of it. Let's see. I really like the idea that we could build a gallows and just start putting people to death. Having a law and order stronghold, like a sort of Sheriff Joe Arpaio regime or something. Having the hirelings wear pink underpants to emasculate them. I don't know. Maybe there's 3 of you that know what I'm talking about with that. And we could then, so for instance, a well. Everyone in the stronghold has free access to water and can fill their water skins. So that is going to help our play outside of the stronghold. And then we can maybe look training grounds the same. That's going to help us outside of the stronghold. But ramparts are going to increase the defense rating of the stronghold by +2. So does that matter outside of the stronghold? Maybe by degrees of separation, right? Because there are going to be these events at the stronghold in which there can be incursions. And if it is not well defended, then everything and everyone there could be eligible to be stolen or destroyed. But the most immediate effect that is going to have is increasing the security of the stronghold itself. And so it's a bit of a circle within a circle here. There is those things that help with upkeep, defense, maintenance, operation of the stronghold, and then those things which are the deliverables. You can usually only have one of these except a pigsty, which for whatever reason, in a lot of Free League games with Stronghold stuff, they have pigsties. And pigsties are also a thing that are very easy to make, and usually you can have multiple of them. In my Mutineer Zero campaign, it's just like a complete... If you've ever seen like a solar energy facilities in a desert that just have miles and miles of those solar plates, that's how like our arc is right now in MYZ. It's just all pigsties as far as the eye can see. Sheepfold, if you want some sheep. A shrine gives PC 1 additional willpower point when you return to your stronghold. So I just like in a way, this, if you really max out your attention to this, as my intention is, this can almost have like a Sim City vibe to it, right? Now, in terms of the functions, the raw material listing is significant because, again, we need raw materials, we need tools, we need time, and in some, for some of these, we need certain talents, and we need pre-existing functions to already exist. So I'm looking at ones that you need something previous to, a forge. This is kind of wild because this is the example I gave off the top of my head, and it was actually correct. Not saying that it requires a 600 IQ to say this, but I just think that's funny that the forge requires that you already have a fireplace and the builder talent. It's going to take 60 iron and 400 stone. It's going to take a week to make. It's going to increase reputation by 1. We need a sledgehammer and a hammer. And let's look at the output. Each quarter day during which the forge is staffed by a PC or an NPC with the smith talent or the hireling of the same name, up to 12 units of iron ore can be turned into the same units of iron. And this is what goes back to my crafting video. If you did not watch that, I think it's called Why Does Crafting Kind of Stink in Tabletop? This is where it does start to feel a little bit like just currency by a different name. So I'm spending a bunch of time, I'm spending a bunch of raw materials, and then once I do that, I can produce more iron from iron ore more quickly so that I can build other stuff. And yes, I think the trick here, or the way to think about this, is all of tabletop RPG actions are currency. They are math when it comes down to it. It really is, if you were to strip it down and make it into like the Matrix with the little weird binary code that is green and runs down everything when like Neo sees the truth. Tabletop really is that, it's like combat is, okay, I want to take my broadsword and I want to do a run towards this minotaur and then I want to slash. And what that really is saying is like, okay, I want my character with 2 strength plus 1 sword to run -1 move and make an attempt, which is dice +2 +1 against, resistance. I don't need to go on here. I think you get the point. And so, yes, we could deconstruct everything into oblivion. So I think or I shouldn't say oblivion, we can deconstruct everything into math. And so the real trick here isn't like exposing mechanics for being nothing more than math, because all of them are math. They are math that is painted nice. They are like math with lipstick on. That's what a role-playing game is. And so I think the question is not whether it is reducible to math. It always is. The question is how easily are you able to forget that it's just math? How immersive is it? How easy is it for me to suspend my disbelief? And I'm thinking, as I've been talking about this more, that potentially people who are going to make the accusation that crafting and stuff like this is nothing more than currency in disguise, these people are more likely to be min-max players who are like, well, why would I spend all of this time getting, these resources when I can have an equivalent yield by just doing this and getting silver and paying for it, etc. Yeah, I suppose you're right. But if that is the case, then go play Number Munchers. Like, if you really just want to be the best at it, maybe I'm making too sweeping of a claim here, but I'll just finish my diss. Maybe just, play a game that's more objective. If you are that interested in becoming like the statistically best player, play Magic the Gathering or something. Yes, that is something, as I was saying it, that I thought of a bunch of counter arguments. Go ahead, hit me with them in the comments. Okay, so we have our hirelings, we are building our functions here, and now we have events. If you live long enough to become skilled in rich adventures with a stronghold of your own, chances are high that your deeds will spread across the Forbidden Lands, but fame comes with a cost. As your reputation rises, the risk increases that your stronghold will attract unwelcome visitors. And so these can come from the dungeon below or up top. Approximately once per week, we will roll on an event on the Stronghold. And this will actually go back to the GM guide. So I was wrong before. Here's another thing. Page 12 of the GM guide here. Events at the Stronghold. The GM first rolls a number of d6s equal to the highest reputation score of the group. And at least one die should be rolled. The highest die becomes the 10s in the d66, and then roll a separate d6 for the 1s. Only roll when the stronghold is guarded by the adventurers themselves or their militia. Well, Oh, okay. There is a table for unguarded strongholds on page 164 in the player's handbook. Certain functions in the stronghold, like gallows, can affect the event roll, as well as results from the table for non-payment of salaries, which we'll go back to the player's handbook for. So really quick, this is a criticism that is addressed in some of the supplements to this, is that if you are an older adventurer to start and you are reasonably well advanced by the start of the game, there's all these events at the Stronghold that are usually just because of the bump of reputation that comes as a modifier. There's all these events that you're going to skip over. Because it says up here, if you once again roll the same events at the Stronghold, there are 3 alternatives. It can be a continuation of the last session. You can modify it so that it becomes different, or you can re-roll. I would almost always select 1 or 2, just in terms of, I would say, being. I think in solo play, I will often ration anything that is a limited resource of inputs. That's just like it's not even necessarily a tip and trick. It's more of just an instinct to say, well, I want to keep the novelty and diversity of experience as wide as possible. So whenever I can, I will reduce, reuse, or recycle. Okay, so we roll a 33. Thieves in the night. D6 thieves break into the stronghold at night. The adventurers or a guard can discover them. If the thieves get away, they steal all valuables that they can find. The GM decides exactly what's stolen. So there is a good amount of these here because it is D66, so there's 36. Although there look like there's like a span that I think, if you roll 11 to 26, nothing happens. Okay, so oddly, that's the one piece in the GM guide. And then back to the player's handbook here. So it says, what is it, 162. So this is what happens if you don't pay the hirelings. You roll a d6. Let's try one out. 2. The hirelings leaves, they post, and interesting, and steal something valuable when they go. The GM determines what. All right, so we need to make a table for that. Although, that would change very often, right? Because of the content. So maybe like a thematic table. So we could say object, currency, artifact, etc. They can protest and rally the other hirelings, so they basically go on strike. The best roll is a 6. They just keep working, but complain. And then if they don't get paid within a week, you have to roll again. As a general rule, a hireling will work for 2 quarter days per day. They can work a 3rd quarter day, which is a sort of forced march for work, but they are given double pay. These are general guidelines. A salary is generally paid in coins. In the Forbidden Lands, it is common for servants at a castle to get paid in goods or services or simply protection rather than in coin. In these rules, all salaries are given in coin to simplify things. If you'd rather pay in goods, it's usually fine. Use the price list in Chapter 9 as a guide. GM has final say. If you leave the Stronghold to go adventuring, hirelings will expect to get paid in advance for the time you expect to be gone. Yet another benefit of having multiple of us there, multiple managers. If you don't pay a hireling what you promised them, it will mean trouble. Roll on the table. And you don't need to provide food and water for them. They manage to acquire it on their own using their salary. If your stronghold is under siege, it's another story. If you have the master builder hireling in your stronghold, you can have him build new functions instead of doing it yourselves. A master builder automatically succeeds at all crafting rolls. The downside is the master builders are expensive. All right, so we want to look at, okay. Yes. All right, so keeping watch. If you leave your stronghold to go on adventures, there's a real risk that someone will come and loot it while you're gone. A stronghold must be guarded. For each week that your stronghold is left unguarded, the GM rolls on the unguarded stronghold table above. Let's see what. 6. Luckily, no one disturbs. I could have guessed that. 1. A local prince, orc chieftain, or similar discovers the unguarded stronghold and occupies it. All the hirelings flee, cowards. When the adventurers return, the stronghold is guarded by 2d6 hostile soldiers or warriors. So you basically get this is our castle now. Upkeep. Your stronghold doesn't only need to be guarded, it needs general upkeep. Dirt needs to be cleaned, loose bricks to be mortared, trees and plants need to be tended to, and broken things must be repaired. This work takes 1/4 day per day and requires a crafting roll each week. One PC rolls, but others can help. If the roll fails or if the upkeep is not performed, roll on the lacking upkeep table. You can hire a handyman to do this. They don't need to roll dice. So lacking upkeep. 3, a hireling has a nasty fall or is hit by falling rocks. Make a roll on the critical hit table for blunt trauma. So this is basically like OSHA violations are going to happen if you don't do upkeep. All right, so this is I think we have like a pretty good schematic here of how this works. We have the stronghold. Anything that happens there, we need to do it ourselves. It needs to be guarded, upkept, and we need to have people staffing it to do the functions. If we are not able to do it ourselves, we can hire people to do it. They require a salary to continue going. We're going to have one event per week, and we need to, at least my primary goal in the collaborative campaign is I'm going to be very focused on collecting raw materials and artifacts, because I think both of those will help not only to expand the stronghold, but also to support its function and increase the reputation. And again, any reputation increase for like +1 from stronghold functions, all of us get that. So all of us will be able to advance. It's almost like I play, as I've mentioned before, an embarrassing thing about me that when people find this out, just given my personality, they can't believe it. But I've always been addicted to at least one mobile, like trivial mobile game at any time during my life. And for about a year and a half, I've played Warhammer 40k Tacticus, which is this little game that you could free to play it, but like I confessed before, I have paid $5 here and there for like a gem refill. And the game, you can play it on your own as not part of a guild, but when you're part of a guild, you share a lot of spoils. And so it always pays off to be part of it, except for the fact that you have to talk to the people in your guild, and some of them are a bit annoying, as I'm sure will happen in the Stronghold. Okay, so that pretty much covers that, with one thing remaining, which is how we are going to manage battles or defense. Battles at the Stronghold. One day, enemies might come to your gates. When this happens, you need to defend it. When an enemy force attacks your stronghold in large numbers, one of the players rolls dice against the GM to determine the outcome of the battle. If your adventurers are present, they can affect the roll. And this I like. This makes it easy because, again, no, we don't have to be present for this. We just need to know who's there and who can help, which would add a die to the roll. The battle is resolved in several turns. In each turn, the players roll dice for the defense, and the GM rolls for the attackers. Interesting. Roll as many base dice. So this might completely contrast what I just said, because I thought that you were going to do one roll for this and there'd be an outcome, and maybe we can be adapted for that. The problem with summarizing battle into one dice roll is that you just have a really bad roll and you like lose everything. But still, I think we could do this asynchronously to just know who is present by a certain point, and then when people are like, I'm there right now, I'm not adventuring, I'm not camping somewhere else. Once I know who's there, I can just sort of simulate that by doing a series of rolls in the Discord channel, because there's actually dice rolling tools there. Each 6 or success, the cross swords, is a defense or attack rating. The opposing side is decreased by 1. When a turn is over, each side must decide whether to give up or keep fighting. So like a morale check. The rules for battle at the Stronghold designed to be fast and easy to use and therefore make no difference between different types of soldiers. If you prefer a more detailed approach, you can use the following rules. Add the strength rating to the skill level in melee or marksmanship, whatever is higher, of a typical soldier in the force. The sum is the soldier's combat rating. Divide 50 by the combat rating, rounding up to get the number of soldiers in a base unit of defenders. Divide 100 by the combat rating to get the numbers of soldiers in a base unit of attackers. Each base unit gives a +1 to the defense or attack rating. The maximum bonus is +5. Each point of lost defense or attack rating during the battle means that number of soldiers is equal to one base unit have been broken. For example, a force of attacking soldiers with a strength of 4 and skill level of 3 in melee, combat rating 7, has a base unit of size 15, 100 divided by 7 rounded up. If the force loses 2 points of attack, 30 soldiers are broken. All right, so that's a pretty, not a bad way if you're just looking to do a little something, right? We're not like figuring out a massive pitched battle of the Napoleonic Wars with thousands of models and built out terrain. That looks like a pretty good way to abstract that. I dig it. Okay, so that concludes what is available in the player's guide. Before we advance into the additional resources, let's just look up really quick what is in the Book of Beasts to add to this. All right, so on page 154 of the Book of Beasts, which I believe is in the solo... it might either be in the solo... No, it's in the GM tools on page 141, which I think is an extension of the solo rules. These things can easily be used because you have weather in here, you have traps, you have books, ballads, and grimoires. That might be something. Actually, wait a minute. We're looking at books, ballad. Let me take a look at this really quick. Okay, so this is actually an interesting system of advancement here. The adventurers can come across books on their travels, and examples of such sources of knowledge and power are presented below. In the table for carried valuable finds and carried precious finds in the Game Master's Guide 188 and 190, let's take a quick look. All right, so on these tables we have simple finds in a layer, valuable finds, carried valuable finds, so silver coin, silver box, pearl, silver bowl. I'm not seeing any grimoires or anything here. Valuable finds, painting, silver medallion, silver chest, glass bowl. Beautiful. Oh, I thought that said a beautiful voice. Like you open a box and it's just like la la la. Expensive wine, fine hat, candelabrum, silver sarcophagus, carried precious finds, pearls, golden bowl, gold amulet, golden mug, velvet gloves, drinking horn, rare gem. Okay, unique book. Is that really the only? Is that really the only one there that refers to that? I have an idea brewing in my head right now. Some oddities. Okay, so given that, let's just see again what this says here. In the table, carries valuable finds and carried precious finds. Result number 61 yields a rare or unique book. Okay, so we would have to expand the possibility of finding that, because as it stands right now, the odds for rolling a 61 in all of those tables, given that you'd have to roll on that table and then roll 61, has to be quite low odds for that. But the idea that's percolating in my head right now is that maybe we can say, I'm thinking of the Black Library in Warhammer 40k, this like sort of library that exists in a pocket dimension that holds all of the knowledge of the universe. Since we're already dealing with this sort of dimensional rift thing, maybe this dungeon could have lots of these rare and precious books. What's interesting about this, and what could really offer some awesome advancement possibilities here, is it says reading a rare or unique book requires a quarter day of studies and a wits roll. On a success, the adventurer increases a skill level or a talent rank by 1 step. That's huge. A person can only study the same book once. I don't know if that means they can study it once or they can only study the same book twice. I guess it's just once. But first you roll the type of ballad, or I'm sorry, the type of book, which is a ballad, manual, or grimoire. A ballad will give you +1 in a general talent, roll for talent, and ballad. Manual gives you a level 1 in a skill, and grimoire +1 in a magic talent. This is huge. So like this one, if you read the ballad Easy Little Dwarfling, it's a lullaby from Yendra, and it gives you the talent Lightning Fast. But there's also like this one right here would give you the Fisher talent. Or some of these are literally like you can up your skills. This is like a super powerful method of leveling here. So I think maybe we'll stick some books in the dungeon below. We'll figure out a way to decide. I mean, it still should be very rare, or else, our characters are going to have 600 spells and 63s and everything. But that's very cool. And then you have, again, how to, some advanced info on bringing up different journeys and camping, weather. And for ruins, I think we could potentially use this. Oh, like while you're down in the dungeon, perhaps, if you want to camp in there, if you can't get back up. All right, the following section expands on the rules for strongholds. A stronghold can serve as an adventure site where the adventure comes to the player characters rather than the other way around. Interesting. Another option is to have a random event connected to a monster take place at the stronghold. Why let the player characters feel safe there? I agree. So this is cool. All that glitters is not eggs. Amphibian monster. A demonic bottom dweller. I think this is a great idea. I mean, I think very well that this should be included in the possibility of weekly events. And then we can also give our hirelings personalities, which again, I think is awesome. This is perfect. I've already developed a series of not Google Drive, I use CryptPad, but which has its ups and downs. You can't import other documents, so I have to kind of make everything homemade, which is a shame because there's a lot of really good tools out there. But we can keep a list of all of our hirelings and really develop them as NPCs, and even maybe as companions that we can take with us down into the dungeon or out to adventure, given the circumstances. Yeah, this has a D66 different hireling personalities. I love this. We can also forage to find herbs. And I guess there is a poisoner talent. So is that the only... Okay, so that is based on... That's a new talent, alchemist. That is not necessarily stronghold specific, but there's a new stronghold function, the laboratory, a room full of glass containers, pipettes, burners, various ingredients where alchemists and poisoners... That's a rough profession to have. What do you do? I work at a Chrysler Plymouth car dealership. What about you? I'm a poisoner. So you have to have the alchemist or poisoner talent. I see. So that's why this talent is introduced. 100 wood, need a saw and a hammer, 1 week, adds 1 to your rep, and adds +2 to healing when the skill is used to create potions and poisons. Very cool. And then you have all of these alchemical potions as well. So hopefully one of us who is a member of this stronghold is going to be a real devious sort of a lab rat who's going to just be constantly telling us to try this. And I say, what was that? And they say, well, that was a bellyful. It is made with 1 herb and a troll's gastric juice. But it cures hunger. Some different poisons. And then interactions between poisons. I love that, like counterindications. Okay, great. Artifacts. The tables for carried precious finds and precious finds in a layer. We just looked at that. Both include an artifact. That's result 66. You may then choose a named artifact or use the following rules to roll one. Again, I think between the grimoires and these artifacts, we can build a story of what this dungeon and this stronghold is. I think that will be one of the coolest, from a narrative perspective, one of the coolest parts of this project. So we can, this basically makes it so we can build artifacts. What's its name? What's its bonus? And again, in Forbidden Lands, artifacts are really going to juice up your gameplay. And a lot of people will actually say that once you get artifacts in the mix, a lot of players become OP. But in terms of dice, boy, do I covet these artifact dice, because, you know, thinking about if you're familiar with the Year Zero engine, you need a 6 for a success, but this also has up to D12, and so if you roll a 12 on this, you're getting, sorry, is this a, no, it's a D12. You're getting 4 additional successes tacked onto that, so you have much higher chance to succeed. And then I just think the artifact dice are quite pretty. We have a D10 one here and a D8 artifact die as well. Very cool. To roll an artifact, start by rolling its name. Okay, yeah, we get that. And then these are different skill artifacts, including different musical instruments. Could be armor, weapons, one-handed, two-handed, range, and then there could be an oddity for it. Let's take a roll and see what the oddity is. Let me reroll here. 31. Constantly vigilant, warns of incoming danger. The bearer cannot be taken by surprise. Ooh, someone's behind you. Quiet, you leather trident. Okay, and that completes the list of oddities. So pretty cool additions to Stronghold there. And I'm just going to quickly breeze through the solo rules here to see if there's anything else. Well, I will say that companions, probably we can generate these from the Stronghold hirelings and NPCs. Companions have no willpower points, cannot push. They should rarely roll for themselves. If their main PC dies, the companion could get upgraded. That's kind of like when James Hetfield from Metallica had that thing where the flame, like the pyrotechnics, like just blasted into him, and then they were like, crap, who's going to play? And one of the roadies was like, hey, I know every song. And they just had the roadie come in and play guitar because James couldn't play when his arm was healing. So this could happen. You know, one of these hirelings, we sit them down, we say, you know, look at let's look at one of their names. Is this bit worth it? We'll see. We say, look at, you see Sinmelda over there, that curious servant who's hunted by a demon? Well, Sinmelda used to be the chef, and now she's our main ranged weapon user. Was that bit worth it? Let me know below. And we have companion motivations and professions, and this is where we use these different talents, which you will notice that these talents roughly conform to the hireling talents. So that is something intriguing there. We might come back to. Yeah, I do think a lot of these mechanics in here are going to be helpful for Stronghold play and obviously solo play in general. And solo social interactions might come in, especially role playing in villages as we look to like recruit hirelings here. But other than that, I would say let's move on now from the official documentation to the supplements that are available, and this will sort of round out the Stronghold rules of operation, and so that we can fully understand how we're going to manage this our P de terre. Okay, so as far as the solo expansion, which is now in version 1 from Matt K, again, this is the person who wrote the solo rules in Book of Beasts and was given a certain amount of space, and this expansion was essentially the stuff that didn't make it in due to space constraints. So not much that is Stronghold specific here, other than perhaps at the end here, there is a quick guide to making on-the-fly dungeons, and this system works well to create dungeons that don't include spoilers, as the dungeon generation tools in the GM guide are going to have information that bridges the knowledge gap. And this is how I've started explaining this in terms of solo play, is that one of the issues with following adventure straight from a campaign book, and actually Matt talks about this here, like using stuff from published materials that are for game masters, is that it relies upon having a gap of knowledge between the players and the GM, and the player's job is to bridge that gap, and the GM is able to say like colder, colder, warmer, warmer. But in solo play, you know, if the GM knows, you are the GM, and so it's not like you're going to have to you know, it's like, oh, I wonder if there's anything in this room. Let's read. There is a treasure hidden here. I'll get that treasure, right? And so this having a solo-friendly dungeon generator here, and also a castle creator, will allow for there to be a sort of spoiler-free creation. And I think we could probably even build this out a little bit more. Okay, so from there, let's see. So that one is cleared. We'll go to Reforged Power last because that one is expansive. This is just a reference sheet here. Nice little reference sheet that I got from, wow, Higginbotham. Cool name. Another rules summary. Oh, that's the Soothsayer's deck. Okay, so we'll just close these out. So there is actually a player's guide and a GM guide for Reforged Power. So again, we'll go to those last, but what we're going to do is take a look at Wormwood, which is a solo adventure site for Forbidden Lands by Graham Henson. And Wormwood, I believe, takes place in a castle. And so this is a built-out solo adventure module. Looks pretty cool. And not sure. There may be some Stronghold type sites here. Some NPCs. Some background on the religion, the elements. Okay, so this looks like a pretty cool sort of like Call to the Green, the Man Alone solo supplement for Dragonbane, sort of a sequenced solo adventure. I'm going to run through this really quick to see if there's any Stronghold stuff, because I don't want to have spoilers for this. 1 second. Dude, there is not a ton of Stronghold stuff in here, but all I can say is if you want to play solo Forbidden Lands, this is a really cool supplement. So you have these keyed scenes, which we're not going to go beyond that, but they are substantially written out. And I actually like this like keyed scene tracker on the bottom. That's a cool way to like determine which of the keyed scenes came next. I think this would have actually worked really well in Called to the Green, because there's lots of options at every site in CTTG where you can explore a bunch of different things. And I think this would be like a really good way of determining like which one goes next in a sequence and when some sort of event is triggered. So I'm not going to spoil those. But before that, there is an incredible D666 rumors table. Look at this. This is so awesome. And rumors are currently on the Man Alone Too Hot to Handle Hot 95 top 10 list of solo tools. I think rumors are absolutely some of the best solo inputs you can have, because They are leads that you can easily build out and connect to other plot points, but if it just does not work in the context of the world building you've already done, then it's just a rumor. And so this is amazing. Just for, even if you don't want to do the Wormwood, you have gossip. Look at this. Oh, I love this. This is such a good tool. You should all get Wormwood if you can. Faction tables, activity tables, where, what, when, and then look at all these random events. This is really, this is a very good solo adventure. And I'm going to actually look on drive-through to see how much this is. $5 stinking bucks. So you should definitely check out Wormwood if you're a Forbidden Lands player. And perhaps if you are a Dragonbane player, you can also check out Call to the Green. But for $5, this is 64 pages. Just a lot of tools in here. You should definitely check this out. And just reviewing this, just so you know, to you, that pause was like a split second. But I read this entire supplement, and it is bonkers good. So definitely check this out. All right, so that's Wormwood. We will move now to, I think, will be the most important of the resources that we use for this, which is Castles and Strongholds. Okay, so the first 15 pages are very good tools for first, creating a castle that you could use in your game to siege or whatever, and it determines like who is in it, what monsters are there, what loot is there. And then the Stronghold section, again, I think at first it continues on in the idea of like taking over a stronghold, and we might be able to incorporate this, but again, there's the assumption here that we already have this stronghold, but this could give good guidance on repairing different things. The real, and again, with these other resources, I don't want to show all of them out of respect for the independent creators of these. I don't want to like just give away all their work, but I think here, this page 17, is critical, because this actually gives definitive guidance on the availability of natural resources for extraction, and the amount that is generated by hirelings, or conversely by player characters if they are sort of working the land to extract these resources. It has this for physical mineral type resources as well as livestock. There's also a resource exploitation list, which I think could be used in the lands around the stronghold to say when we maybe need to like let a field lay fallow. And again, the pigsty is the one location that does not wear down from the hex's natural resources. But yeah, so the resource, there's guidance here on resource proliferation in terms of how long it takes to recharge that hex, as well as these production locations and how much they yield given the level that they're on. So in day-to-day operation, as well as resource management, I think this is going to be required reading. And again, you should check this out. I think this one is also very affordable on drive-through, and it has information about events at the stronghold that are not necessarily enemy attacks or anything, like a frost and stuff like that. And then at the end, there is also more detailed guidance on like enemy incursions. So this is a very, very good resource, and it's 25 pages, well worth the time and money. Okay, so now we are nearing like almost the 2-hour mark. So good job if you've made it this far. But the last ones that we're going to do, I am going to try to be quite succinct here and not do just like sort of open-ended scrolling, because these resources, the Reforged Power Player's Booklet and GM's Guide, these are a total of 309 pages, I believe, which is just incredible. I mean, this is like more pages than I think the actual Player's Guide. And it is a detailed, massive, detailed listing of what I assume is homebrewed rules that are sort of codified. Yeah, this is 207 pages, and this is 309. And there is both a player's booklet, a GM guide, and for each of the innovations, and there is a wide range of innovations here. There is different talents, skills. There is combat refinements, equipment refinements, journeying improvements, and then, of course, on page 84, strongholds. And we just see from this table of contents here, there is starts here for strongholds and goes from page 84 to 98 is stronghold resources. 101 is battles at the stronghold, siege equipment, setting up a shop, stronghold management. So it goes from page 84 to 107. So 23 pages on that in the player's guide. And then in the GM guide, let's see here. We have stuff on artifacts that we'll probably pull. And then strongholds go from 94 to, I suppose, well, this one looks like 94 to 96, so it adds some Nemesis events and a Thieves Guild and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just look at these, evaluate ones that I think I want to put to use and those that I don't. And this is how this tool was made to be used, right? You look at these and they even give indications on each one, like you should use this if you want to do this, or if you don't like this, then don't use this one. So I'm going to go through this and then quickly review the optimizations and improvements that we will utilize. Okay, so I think for as far as the GM guide of Reforged Power, I may use the new events at the Stronghold if the events that are available get sort of tired. It gives some ideas for replacement events. A few of them, well, let me say it like this. I think a lot of the innovations here are quite severe in that they exert tremendous effects on the entire Stronghold system. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't use them, just that I think as a like just starting out, these wouldn't become relevant until we've exhausted every other possibility of the Stronghold, because this involves like some bad like stuff that I wouldn't necessarily like. I think it involves some like moral trade-offs. So you could have a thieves guild come set up shop, and that makes you -5 to your rep, but you can bribe your hirelings more easily, and it does some other effects like that. And then there's a whole list of more advanced modules that you can research and implement, like an academy of learning, or you can turn your stronghold into a dedicated temple to a god, which then allows for a priestly class to come in. And then there's more specific hireling options, like having a instead of just someone who does mining, like you could have a dwarven miner come in, and they have like very special skills for extracting iron and stuff. So very interesting ideas here, but to start, probably not going to implement anything from the Game Master's Guide. So we'll take a look now at the Reforged Power Player's Guide and see what we want to use from there. Okay, first and foremost, not directly related to the Stronghold, but by extension, there are advanced mechanics for surveying land. And I think this will be useful as we get more specific about the types of resources we need. I think generating resources from how the system is set up now with like the hex map, it makes it very accidental, or there's no guiding algorithm to like what resources you find and when. And so I think we'll use the information from the Castles and Strongholds guide as well as here to make it so that we can have a little bit more of a strategic approach to finding and gathering resources. So that's a little bit separate, but I thought that was worth a mention. All right, so suffice to say, this, I just have to say, I think this is the most incredible like made by community created content for a game I've ever seen in my life. Just the level of thought and options and proposed improvements and the expansion of so many ideas that are just mentioned in the core game books is just incredible. So there is tons of new functions, new hirelings, new methods for determining hirelings' level of mastery. There is options for turning your stronghold into sort of a community and then having residents that can move in and function sort of as quasi hirelings or guards. Advanced combat, so that you can incorporate large amounts of people, because if you're building like whole communities at your stronghold for 150 residents to be at, it's going to have a different sort of scale for battles and stuff like that. So a lot of incredible resources. What I want to say is up front, I think I am going to hold off on the options in here until they come up. This will be something where if somebody has an idea of a new module they want to build, or they need more refinement on resource gathering and availability, there's like advanced resources here. They have methods for like generating milk and tar and all sorts of stuff. I think we'll add this as it becomes wanted or needed. But to start, I think if I tried to implement all of this to start, like there's directions on like using the to determine weekly commerce sales from your shops and stuff like that. I think starting with this would be a little bit too complicated and might feel like too much to chew and swallow from the start. So Reforged Power, we will see over time based on how successful this collaboration is, if it is something we want to use. But with that, I think this provides a pretty good overview of how we're going to run this. Obviously, it will take a lot of refinement and trial and error. But if you would like to join, please use the join button below to join at the $3.99 a month membership. That is SEAL Team Waffle Alpha, which some see as a missed opportunity. Like it should have been SEAL Waffle Alpha Team, then it could have been SWAT. But I don't think that I want to associate like swatting with my channel, just in case anyone gets any ideas. But if you join, then go ahead and send me a message on Discord if you want to be part of the Discord. My name on there, all one word, all lowercase, not sure if that matters, is Man Alone Waffle. And we have a channel dedicated specifically to this. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed learning all about Strongholds, and that maybe because of this video, there'll be more Strongholds in lands forbidden and permitted. Thank you everyone for joining, and may your Strongholds be strong. I wanted that to be inspiring, but it was just kind of stupid. May your Strongholds be strong. Do this whole 2-hour video, and then I just dropped the ball at the end. Terrible. Oh, crap.